Dave Brown back here with Wes, episode 2. We weren't going to talk about pickleball. That's all we talked about. And so, Wes and I both have a background in education. And, my wife Judy's 34-year teacher, longtime coach. Mm-hmm. You taught how long?
I taught for, let me think about that, 13, 14 years
right
in the classroom. Yeah. 2 years in middle school, 2 years too many, in my opinion. I had a good time with it, but mostly high school at McMinnville High, and taught history and government and history of rock and roll and history of Latin America, lots of different classes. So,
yeah, we've talked a lot about, different schools. Again, McMinnville, red and white, Newburgh, blue and gold.
Blue is a great color, by the way.
Blue is a great color. You look so good in blue. But, I think the one things when I met you, mm-hmm. when we would talk education, being at Newburgh High School for 20 years, as a coach, you can't help yourself evaluate. You're just watching people who are good teachers, people that are fantastic teachers. And even though today's world, I'm a little bit critical of some of the stuff that's going on today, whether it's in McMinnville or Newburgh or any school just about out there, there are those fantastic teachers like my Mrs. Williams in 5th grade, Mr. Alternator in middle school, Mr. Russo in high school. Those were teachers that impacted me greatly. They're out there. But I'd also evaluate the people who weren't very good at it, and going, dang, because a kid, being a coach, kids will tell you. And one thing about high school kids, middle school kids, they can be fairly blunt.
There's no filter.
There's no filter.
There's no filter.
But we have a couple education questions today to kind of go over. Mm-hmm. And I know you were one of those impact teachers in the classroom that really got across to people. I can just tell by the way you would just tell me stories about what's going on, what you're doing. Then I watch you coach. Sure. And usually people who coach will teach a lot the same way.
Yeah, that was the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first question, right now is it doesn't have to be a tough one, but it is a tough one. Mm-hmm. And this is where, again, we can disagree on stand tall. And one of the things I love about Wes Gabrielson is, though, since the time I met you, we have disagreed on many things.
A lot of things.
And yet we always come back to one spot: love each other as friends.
Sure.
And that never goes away, no matter how much we disagree. If it gets a little tense, we just kind of take a break and we just all of a sudden don't talk about it. But sometimes we don't go far enough. We get on the golf course and we want to talk about a tough issue.
Sure.
And I know I frustrate you sometimes because I don't finish wanting to talk about it because I'm actually trying to concentrate on golf and you talk all the time. And so we get to that point where, we have different takes on it. But isn't that what's cool?
Yep. Is
to have different takes on it. It's like, it's the way we just do things in life. We don't have to be just like everybody else. And so, but again, you had a unique style in your coaching, but the state of education today, and you've been out of it a few years, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the fact, and I think the whole point of coming on here, besides being a good friend, is we've always had a unique relationship where we practice civil discourse, and like I always told this to my students, never would tell them what side of the aisle I was on because that was a disservice I felt as a teacher. Like, come up with your own views based on the information presented, right? And so even though we're on opposite sides of the aisle politically, we always have come back to this piece where we want to be informed, we care about each other, we care about the world, and that should, no pun intended here, but that should trump everything, right? Yeah. I mean, it really should.
Yeah.
And so we've always been able to have dialogue and be friends, even if we disagree with stuff, because your opinion's your opinion, mine is mine. It doesn't change how I feel about you.
Yeah. I appreciate that, and Wes, that's been one of the greatest things to, when you want to say safe space.
Yeah.
That the ability to have friends like you that we can have that disagreement over Trump or anything like that.
Sure.
And it doesn't impact our friendship.
Yeah.
At all. I mean, you and Lou and then me and Judy, we just know that, man, you pick up the phone, it's 100% rock solid.
Yeah, for sure. So, state of education.
Now, this is where we're going to start have some sparks. Go ahead.
I think it's better off than people maybe think it is, because we've got a lot of really talented teachers
Yeah.
in this country. And I think the foundation, we were talking about former principals and people we work for. I had a principal who I really enjoyed working with, and he was at the high school for a short time in that role. But the first day of the school year, before the kids came in, he said to us, my job is to make sure that you're in a good place, because if you're happy and you have the resources, the kids, who are the most important people, are going to have the best experience. And so I think we've got that key piece of the puzzle. We've got a lot of great teachers. Are there teachers out there who could use improvement? Of course.
No.
And that could be teachers that are really seasoned and really exceptional, and teachers that aren't exceptional. Everyone can get better, right? There's this concept of growth mindset that's entered the last, 10 years of education, that term growth mindset. And we know in education, every 3 years we got some new terms that mean the same thing, but we've got some new acronyms. But growth mindset, I think, is really vital, because if you're a good teacher, if you're a teacher that needs improvement, everyone can get better at what they do. And so the key piece of the puzzle, we've got great teachers out there. I feel like allocation of resources, not just monetary resources, but resources, will help improve things. And, I know we've got more parents who are going to school board meetings, they're getting involved, they want their voices heard. That's a key piece of the puzzle. I feel, coming from the teaching background, a lot of times teachers make choices based on what has been presented to them by district admin or state policy. And so if you give teachers a little more input as to here's what the schedule should be, or these are the topics that maybe we should cover in our community, about our community, I think we would improve things. But I don't think it's quite as dire and down in the dumps as some people think, the state of education.
Yeah, I think, I think right now, we totally agree on the, I could, today, I don't know quite all of them. I've been out for almost 5.5 years at Newburgh High School, but I went from there to the school board, and, jumping into a school board situation, I had everybody on my side until George Floyd passed away, and then mask and COVID, and the world really turned upside down for everybody.
For everyone.
So in fairness to that, education got rocked big time. And I think, though, I could have always made a list up. And as a coach, I had 50 kids every year on my tennis team bout. I could list them 1 through 50, just, skill wise. Some of them were close, but I could do the same thing with educators in our school. You have your teachers, you have your ed assistants, and then you have your secretaries, and then you have your administrators, and then you have coaches who are on staff. You have coaches who are outside the building. Yeah. And it's always better to have your coach in the building if you can. But, in any profession, no less you go to, any profession, there's going to be that same dynamic of really excellent, good, fair, not so good, weak. Yeah. And that's the challenge of any supervisor, manager, boss, owner. They've got to figure out who those people are and hopefully get your staff stronger.
Yeah. Without a doubt. And making valuable in-service based activities for teachers can help increase that level of all of the educators and how they communicate to students, to parents. Time is always the big thing, right? I always felt like every year in teaching, I love what I did, and I had great administrators I worked for. McMinnville was a great district. We had a lot of great teachers and support and resources and technology for how small of a district. Kids had Chromebooks, like great stuff, but we always wanted more time, even if it wasn't realistic. We wanted more time for grading, for planning, for meeting with people. And there's so many things that teachers have to do that maybe the public doesn't realize behind the scenes, just like every job, that I think maybe creates some stressful environments where maybe we say or do things that we shouldn't.
Oh yeah.
I'm not making an excuse. I'm just thinking of a reason for why people do what they do.
Well, as we go, I'll take some pot shots at education, but I think right now, another thing you got to, I don't know if we agree on this or not, but what people don't know, that if you're not in education, is when you're around like grade school,
Mhm.
middle school, high school. Holy cow! I mean, when you're around people all the time, it's an energy sucker. I mean, it's a lot of work to be around kids. I could go right from football to basketball to tennis every year. I did that for 10 years in a row, coaching full time. Worked all day in the school, but um, there's times where you just are just fried on being around people.
Sure.
And kids can be. There's your good days and your bad days.
Yeah, of course.
And
Yeah,
there's
of
the
course.
days where you got it all going on with your students, and then there's other days you're like, you're spinning out of control, and then you got your discipline days, and you got all that kind of
Sure.
stuff happening. So it's a tiring thing. So when teachers, I'd have parents say, well, you guys only work 9 months out of the year. What's wrong? And I'd say, dude, man, by the time Thanksgiving hits, you're just ready for 4 days off. By the time Christmas break,
you get 4 days off.
If you get 4 days, Christmas you get a couple weeks, maybe 15 days. It's huge. Then you get back out there and you feel like you're in a marathon and you're just dying until you get to the line to get to spring break, and the teachers need that time, and ed assistants and everybody. And then you come back from spring break, everybody's pretty good for about 3 or 4 weeks.
Sure.
Spring sports, sun's coming out, the daffodils are going. And then you start getting into the April stuff, and then all the new stuff's coming from the district and these trainings, and they kind of get the cart before the horse, and then you got graduations, and you got all this kind of crazy stuff happen. Kids are going nuts on the seniors because there's
lots going on.
There's senior skip days, junior skip days. Let's all skip days.
You forgot something though.
More discipline in the springtime too.
The most important thing.
What?
Well, not the most important thing,
What?
but kind of a fun thing.
What?
In May, a number started to go on the whiteboard of most teachers.
How many days
till the end of the year? And I would use it as a motivator for the kids.
Yeah.
Like, we look outside the classroom window. I'm like, look how I'd have, we'd be doing a test or something. You get 10 kids daydreaming, looking out the window. I go, hey, everyone stop. See the beautiful sunshine out there? Guess what? Let's look. We got 10 more days. Focus for 10 more days. You can enjoy that any day of the week.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do your test. You don't have to turn your homework in. You're going to be free. But it was a motivator and a relief for us. So I think finding those ways to have a sense of humor with it, but also realize that you're sending a message to kids that's positive and to work hard helps everyone plug through to the end of the school year.
Like coaching, you would know this. I mean, you can't just ramp it up to balls out, from the beginning of February. We start tennis the end of February.
Usually last week of Feb or early March, depending on the calendar cycle.
So 3.5 months. See, you just can't ramp it up to here the whole time. You've got to shift gears, just like you're in an old car, and you got to go slow. You got the corners, and you got to navigate that. And I think the really good educators do that.
Got to have fun with it.
Yeah. And
take a day to watch a movie or have kids do a fun project or something. It's okay. The world's going to survive.
The world's going to survive.
if you don't follow every single day, you can mix it up.
Well, I'm going to throw a couple curves again.
Sure.
We want to talk. We want to be blunt about education. Sometimes I don't. You're not sensitive, but I kind of tease you about that. But when it comes to education, for me, like right now, one of the big problems we're having is, culturally, we've gone through the ringer, and I don't think since my time, Wes, in the 60s, about 6 to about 70, I was in 66. I would have been 9 years old. Moving forward, Vietnam, helicopters, body bags, riots in the streets back here, protests going on.
Yep.
Big things that were changing big time. We had kind of the hippie era start to come in, so the looks were changing, music was changing.
Yeah.
We'll get into music here in a little bit. That's gonna be a fun one. But it was a crazy time. Then we had the assassinations. We saw JFK. That was still fresh in people's memories. We got the Cold War, but then boom, we go into Martin Luther
King and Kennedy.
And then
68.
Kennedy. And these were traumatic things that happened back then, and the news was just rough, and it was very raw. Not like now they showed the stuff in Vietnam on the TV every night. I just remember as a kid, and I think now this time reminds me of a different way of how our world's been hit, and I think education for me, is where we've lost it a little bit here in education is, and the only thing that saved us is the good teachers. I agree with you 100%. And that was one of my frustrations about being on a school board. Had such big ideas to help the teachers more, but I feel like the teachers unions, the national teachers unions have had too much of a negative influence on a lot of our stuff coming down the pipe, and a lot of our public schools with pressure from them have lost their focus. Good teachers never lose their focus. They just keep teaching. They might close their door and say, I'm out. Now, I think Mac was a better school district than Newburgh.
I never spent time in Newburgh district.
We had better
coaching.
colors than you, but I've talked to other people too. I think Mac was more led better. I think they had better leadership than we did. And Newburgh's been an interesting, rough place through all of this. And so, but there are a lot of we talk to people all over the state with Stand Tall, and now it's everywhere. And I think the frustration now is getting our focus back to how you and I, if we were side by side in classrooms, or if we were coaching together, it's got to get back to where it's all about the kids and the focus there, and then making it like what we would try to do in our sports. You did it in the classroom, and I want to get to that next question: is how do you make it amazing? How do you make it to that kids walking out of there going? Because I wanted kids when they came home from my tennis practice or basketball, and mom and dad would say, hey, little, Bobby, what's up? How's school go today? Yeah. And I wanted them to say, not like they would normally do, yeah, and go off to the room. Yeah. They'd sit back, oh man, you can't believe what we did today. We did this, we did this, we did this, we did this. And I wanted them to have that excitement, because there's too many other areas in their life where it's not exciting, boring as heck. And so I guess to me, I think we've lost our focus too much. The weaker teachers are protected. I know in Newburgh, being on a school board, we had teachers do stuff that was insane. They can't be fired almost. There's almost nothing you can do unless it gets heavily into the sexual type thing.
Maybe that's a district thing. Because there were definitely teachers, not just in Mac, but there were teachers in other areas that did something and were gone. So I don't know if it was the system itself, or and you're also talking to someone here who spent the last year or two of his teaching career as a teacher union rep.
I know.
So most of what we were doing was contract negotiation coming out of COVID and safe return to work, and increased cost of living adjustment, things like that, insurance stuff. But I worked with people who did things that they, I think, regretted doing sometimes, but there was a proper system of evaluation and supervision, and I feel like our district did a good job of following that and taking appropriate action. So I think, sure, there is some protections, but if justified firing is there, then it happens. Maybe it's different based on the district you're in.
Yeah,
I don't know. And I'm not talking about things from my experience that were way, like you look at something and go, wow, I can't believe this person hasn't been fired. I'm talking little things, mistakes that people make, and not just in education, but in their jobs, within a company, and things they say and do, that are slip up moments. So
what would you say, like when we talk about do better today, another tough question though, but when we came, I remember being in a school board meeting, and they said, we're going to get Chromebooks for every kid. It was going to be $800,000, about $200,000 in hotspots. I didn't know what a hotspot was at that point. A hotspot is like a place where you can get,
Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting there thinking, okay, because we didn't know at this point.
This is like March of 2020 when we shut down and sent people home. Well, we didn't know what was going on.
We didn't know if this was going to be a week. We didn't know if this was going to be a month. We didn't know it was going to go on so long. We know it hurt a lot of kids.
Sure. And adults and
adults. Yeah. It was rough for everybody. Our neighborhood shut down out here. We had people working from home, and we had red and green signs. Red meant somebody knock on my door and help me.
Yeah.
And we made a plan up in our own neighborhood. Green sign meant no, everything's cool. Mm-hmm. But we had some elderly people. We had single parent people. And we said, hey, if you need somebody to go to the store for you, we'll get that done. And so we had all that in our neighborhood. So when you look at what kids were going through, but when you look back at it now, my suggestion at the time, our reading scores were low. Yeah. Our writing skills were low. Our reading comprehension was low. And I said, well, you talk to kids all the time. You read? No. You read? No. You read? No. And so my suggestion was, okay, so instead of going out, and we know that screenology has been an issue now for many, many, many years, where kids are way too much on their cell phones, way too much on video games, way too much where parents are just, boy, I see this a lot now, Wes, it's scary, where parents are just putting tablets in front of their kids at restaurants and everywhere else. But we know screenology had been a big deal. Now it's been going like 14 years. The research has been coming.
Gotcha.
And so I said, well, how about we just do this? How about we not spend, this was free money from the government at the time, so they're just spending it. How about we just go buy a boatload of books, and every school has a drop site, and you have a staff member staffing that, for a couple hours a day, every day.
Sure.
And you take little Dave or little Wes, little Judy, little Lou, and whatever grade you're in, 4th grade, 8th grade, 10th grade, your reading grade, your reading level, not grade levels per se, because maybe you're a better reader than the average, say, 8th grader.
Sure.
And you have a book, and then your assignment is to read the book and then just do a written report. Could be 1 or 2 double-spaced pages, whatever it is. More difficult as you get older.
Sure.
Put in a big manila envelope. We supply all those, and the kid comes back, puts it in the big bin. It gets taken out. It goes to Teacher Gabrielson. Whatever, and then the teacher takes back that and evaluates it, and says, okay, and then when the kid gets done with one book, they goes, if that's all our kids would have done, and I'm just talking about in Newburgh, because I know other districts just totally stayed in school, but we didn't do anything, and you talk to kids after that, they weren't reading on a Chromebook. Our reading scores went down farther. Our comprehension went down farther. Our writing went down farther. To me, it would have been awesome, and not knowing again how long we were going to be out for.
Sure.
But we could have spent 50, 60, 70 grand on books. We could have spent another, 30, 40,000 on envelopes and paper and everything. And then the teachers would add some really concrete work that these kids were actually getting something done. I'm a huge proponent in reading. Sure. I think reading is one of the most important things that we can teach everybody to do. I would implore everybody to read more.
Yeah.
And I think I would have liked to have seen us be a lot more that way. What do you think of that?
A lot of good stuff in there. I think when we went home, first of all, we didn't know, like you said, who had internet access, computer access. I know one of the first things we did as a district was to make sure that there was free food, because certain people we didn't know if some kids that were homeless, they had stuff going on. So at the bus stops, they had every day someone delivering food. And so people could come and get food, which was great. I think that was number one. Boom. I'm glad we did that. I think the hardest thing, I'm all for reading and doing that. The hardest thing was not really having a way safely at the time, I put that in quotes, to communicate face to face with a lot of people, because it was a little odd. People didn't know what was going on. That I think there was almost this month window, because it happened right before spring break.
Yeah.
It was Friday the 13th was the last day we were in
9
school.
days in the spring sports.
Yeah. No, I remember. Yeah. Having to tell my tennis kids, so they told us we're going to practice for a month. And we're not going to compete yet, but we're going to compete later. Because they didn't know. They had to push something out. So I think there was this month of not knowing what was going on. And it was almost like we kind of had to hit pause for a bit. We decided to do everything asynchronous, because we didn't know who had access to internet, who could log on, and who was going to do the work, because there was a lot of mental stuff going on.
Sure.
Family members getting sick, going to the hospital. They couldn't go visit family members in the hospital. So I was okay with putting a pause for a while. And then as the spring lingered on, it was kind of like, are kids going to do a whole lot? Should we have them do a whole lot? And we kind of created videos and things so kids could tap into something. And we would give them credit for reading something, or making a video, or doing something from home, but it wouldn't really hurt their grade necessarily if they didn't. So I think that first year it was kind of hard to maybe do what you wanted to do, just because it was a couple months of uncertainty. The following fall, when we went back again and we weren't in person, I think maybe implementing something that would have been more practical, if that makes sense. Like, I mean, I would be curious. I'm not arguing with it, but curious, like looking at the scores and reading wise and, where we were at and how much it dipped. And because I have no idea, I mean, we're in kind of this little bubble during that time that was chaotic where we were trying to think, but not think too much.
I guess for me, Wes, I mean, it's just like, even though we coached at Mac and Newburgh, we had no indoor courts.
Yeah.
We didn't have country club kids. We didn't have all that kind of stuff that we know people that did. But I always wanted kids to come out of Newburgh feeling, I think you did this too, is to come out of Newburgh with hey, we're all right. We did everything we could. We're going to dress right. We're going to get nice uniforms.
Yeah.
We're going to go to tournaments in Medford and do different things that the big shot schools, so-called get to do. And I want every kid to go home feeling really good about their experience.
Of course.
And I feel like when it comes to education right now, I've talked to so many young people, and again, young people will just be pretty blunt. Hey, how do you do through high school? How do you feel in college now? And I go, I didn't learn a friggin' thing. Now, I know that's always a false statement because kids learn a lot from K through 12.
They learn.
But it's kind of like the old algebra thing. Like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this?
Critical thinking.
I go, it teaches you how to critical think. And so are you going to use a lot of this algebra? I said, it might surprise you at some point, but, it's probably not going to pop up tomorrow. But
sure.
I think, like when you really look at young people coming out of high school, they want as many clubs in the bag as they can to play the best round of golf. And I feel like right now we've sold them short because I know for sure in this town of Newburgh, and I've talked to people all around, is kids are coming out and they're just like, wow, they're not. Now, take this, like Wes Gabrielson's teaching great in his class. They love that class. But then you got all these other teachers that have watered it down, just do worksheets all the time, and they don't make it interesting. And they're just like, ay. And I feel like we've short-sold the kids because I just remember all the best teachers I had, Wes, are the ones that really pushed me.
Gotcha.
Really pushed me.
Gotcha.
And like at Newburgh, we went through a stretch there when I was still working. Grades were getting dwindled down. We were giving kids a lot of credit for a lot of stuff they really weren't doing. Pretty much, it got to the springtime, unless you shot the president's dog, you were going to graduate.
Gotcha.
And
does the president have a dog right now?
I don't think they do.
I'm sure they're fantastic, though. Sorry.
We're getting there. But I mean, I think that, for me, education, I had another question for you.
Well, I had something, if you don't mind me jumping in. So, it's super interesting because we were talking, I mean, I was just thinking about this. We used to have this thing in McMinnville, and if I have former colleagues of mine that are listening to this, might take a deep breath when I say this phrase, embedded staff development. Every other week we would meet, whoever had prep period, we would meet with an administrator and we did embedded staff development. And that was a time where we would maybe go over a school policy. We talk about some new acronym we were using in education. But I think the most valuable one we ever had is the administrator running the meeting drew this line on the board and had a spectrum, and on one end it had one word and one end it had another word.
Okay.
And the whole conversation is, why are we here? The spectrum, why are we here? Not in that embedded staff development, but why are we in education? On one end, it was student achievement, and falling under that could be test scores, knowledge gained, all of that. The other end of the spectrum, student experience, clubs, activities, positive environment, all of that. So we had an hour discussion. It was the most everyone contributed to those meetings. Because sometimes, I had prep at the end of the day. You go in and you're like, oh my God, I got to grade these papers. I'm thinking about tennis practice. Your mind was elsewhere. For that meeting, everyone was locked in. People who never talked were, believe it or not, I never really shared a lot in those meetings, as much as I love to talk, because my mind was on all the other stuff, right? Everyone was chiming in, and we had to figure out, well, maybe for some kids, it's the experience.
Yeah.
For other kids, they want to go to Harvard. That's probably more the knowledge base. And so I think a blend of the two was always important. Because in my mind, we can achieve the test score, but what are you going to do with the knowledge you gained to get the test score?
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to create robots.
Right.
oh, I can do this algebraic equation, or I know when Abraham Lincoln was born. Like, okay, cool, but how do you apply it? And so, like, being a social studies teacher, we talked about this on the phone the other day. I could always have an essay. It was easier for me in my subject matter to say, all right, here's an essay question. Tell me, these are the 3 things that happened in this war, but would you have made the same decision as President Truman?
Oh.
Tell me why. Critically thinking about it and applying it to your life was more valuable to me than if a kid missed a question on, the year was 1977. Like, I really don't care about that.
Yeah.
I have to assess it, but I really could care less.
Yeah.
And so for math, it's probably a little more difficult.
Right.
Because it's a little more based on problems. So I always admired, we had some phenomenal math teachers that would make algebra applicable. They would have these experiments and, in science and do these other things where kids would be like, oh, I can use this when I am baking a cake or doing this activity. And we need more of that.
Yeah.
Experiential learning.
I agree.
Where I was lucky to be able to do it all the time because the content lent itself to it. So where are you at on the spectrum?
All of that.
But between experience and which one are you a little more
experience?
Okay, more so than the test score,
Well,
knowledge base.
I mean, you can kind of manipulate test scores. One time I was in a site council meeting, and I'm with the person who's our current intern superintendent right now, and he was the assistant superintendent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who was a superintendent had kind of bagged things up a little bit,
Gotcha.
take a little bit of time off. I'll just be polite here. And so he was having to step in and do 2 people's roles. He was working his tail off. He later went to First Grove. Dave Parker is a guy. He's a superintendent, and I like Dave. But he was just frazzled. He just working way too hard. He was really left with a short change on this thing. But so we're in a site council meeting. We're at 6 weeks, and I had 2 high school girls come up. So you got a couple high school kids, you got a couple teachers, you got a couple of administrators, you have a couple parents, you have a couple coaches. So I'm in there, and then Dave Parker, and he's sitting right here, and I'm right here, and Dave came in, and again, this is just one of the things I don't like about education. It was just a hoop jumper type of meeting where jump to another site council so we can say we had a site council because the state likes you to have
meet to meet.
Yeah, meet to meet. Just government at its worst. And Dave's having no more fun with this than anybody else. But the thing about it is he goes, he brings out these charts, these graphs.
Okay.
They were the worst graphs you've ever seen. Dave, I hope you're watching this. And they're just circles. And I'm good with pretty good math and stats. And I'm like, I can't make jack squat out of these things. And so these 2 girls come up during the middle of the day, and they're really smart girls, 4-point valedictorian girls. Hey, Coach Dave, can we ask you a question? And they were really reluctant to ask. They go, we can't understand those graphs. They're stupid. And I looked at them. I said, yeah, I don't know either. And so I went down. I went and talked to the counselor, 2 teachers, called up one of the parents that I knew, went and saw the 2 administrators, and they're going, yeah, they're stupid. We have no idea what we're really talking about, except we were sort of talking about graduation rates.
Okay.
So Dave comes in this day. He sits down. He's a few minutes late, and he's a big guy. He's probably 6'4", 6'5", big man. Well, and again, nice guy. I love Dave Parker. Good, solid man. I'm sitting there listening to the whole conversation, and everybody's just kind of like looking at me to say something. So somebody's going to have to be the bad guy.
Sure.
I'm okay with that. That's why we're doing Stand Tall with Dave Brown. And so all of a sudden I said the question everyone wanted to ask. I said, Mr. Parker, I mean, we're in a meeting like that, and he's the acting superintendent. You don't go, hey, Dave, what's up? You go, hey, Mr. Parker. And he goes, yeah, Dave. And he's just trying to roll. His brain's going 1,000 miles an hour. And I said, what are we here for? And everybody is going like this. And he looks at me and goes, well, what do you mean? And he goes, we're here for graduation rates. He never said that.
Oh, gosh.
And so here we are. We spent 6 weeks, and I'm pissed because I've missed the tennis practice.
Yeah, you got other stuff to do.
I
hear you.
It's only my second tennis practice I ever missed in my whole life. It's for a stupid site council meeting. So we're sitting there going over this stuff, and he's got this whiteboard, Wes, huge whiteboard.
Yeah.
And it's got one opening about this big. And I'm looking at it, and so he's sitting there going, I said, Mr. Parker, raise my hand up. He goes, yeah, Dave, what is it? And I said, well, so what's our graduation rate right now? And he goes, we're at 70%. I go, okay. So
70?
70. Yeah. So a couple minutes later, I go, raise my hand up, and he goes, yeah, Dave, what is it? And I said, he's irritated. I'm asking questions. And I said, so what's the social and economic thing with these people that are graduating again? Because he had some numbers. Okay. And then I said, so there's like 3 or 4 different things he said. So I raised my hand 4 times. Oh man, by the 4th time he's ready to shoot me. So I just started doing math. Well, what I came up with is I just based it on 350 kids, which is about our average graduation
Grad class, yeah.
Just took the number and went, I could have done this in 3rd grade because I had the peachy with all the little numbers on it.
The peaches.
And I
Oh
said
my
back
God.
then, I said,
Peaches.
remember that?
I do remember peaches.
I stole them from my older dad. Hearts and boyfriends.
Oh
Numbers
my
all over
gosh, he had like sports figures and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my
old
God.
school, like 50s type
Yeah.
of drawings.
Yeah.
So I said, I raised my hand up, and he goes, yeah, Dave, what is it? I don't need any more interruptions. And I said, I know, but I've got the answer. And everybody just stops. And he goes, what? What answer to what? And I said, the graduation rate. I said, I just was doing a little checking here, and I go, we got a 70 on our report cards. That means we got a D on our report card from the state.
Yeah.
So that means we suck. And if we don't get to like 78, we don't get an A. And if we don't get an A, or an 82 maybe. If we don't get to 82%, we don't get an A. And that's why we're really here, because we got a D on our report card. That's why we're here. and oh man, steam coming out of his ears. And I said, so I have the answer. He goes, how? I said, well, you just give me all the stats and the data, so I just put it all together. He goes, what? I said, can I have that white space on the board? Just big. Everything else is just filled with these circle graphs. Dumb. I get up there and I go, based on 350 kids, based on the fact that our graduation rate's only 70%, based on this social economic factor, I said, you know what's awesome? We only have to fix 12 kids. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? What do I mean? I said, if we fix 12.6 kids, we're going to be at that graduation rate. That's all we have to do. And I didn't know that the administrators had been working on this in the district office. They spent tons of money working on it.
Yeah.
And I said, all we have to do is fix 12.6 kids. I love the 0.6.
Yeah, of course.
And
what's a 0.6 kid?
What's a 0.6 kid? He probably wrestles 98-pounder or whatever, something like that. Plays 7 doubles on the tennis team. And so I go, okay, I can fix this by tomorrow. And he's pretty irritated with Dave Brown. He goes, how? And I said, I'll go talk to him.
Step 1, talk to the kids.
Shocker. I only have 12.6 kids I got to go talk to.
Yeah.
And actually, it was the actual number was 42 kids total.
Okay.
42 kids total, but to get our percentages up, we just needed to get 12.6. Yeah. And I said, I'll go talk to him. I said, I guarantee out of those 44.3 kids or whatever it was, I will find out that mom and dad are getting a divorce. Dad lost his job. Grandpa's got cancer. The dog just got hit by a car. Yeah. I broke up with my girlfriend, or I'm smoking enough weed where I don't really freaking care about anything. Yeah. One of those factors, something's going to come into play where, hey, Wes, what's up? And you're going, what do you mean, coach? And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, last year you're a AB student. Now you're a CDF student. Exactly. And you're failing. You're not going to graduate. Tell me what's going on. And every single time I do this, Wes, and this is one of my favorite things I liked about being in high school. I wasn't part of the counseling department, but I got to counsel a lot of kids. And I say, hey, Wes, what's going on? And you kind of go, well, mom and dad are getting divorced. It's really tearing me up. And I'm like, okay. I said, what's your plan? So I talked through them, and then I'd always try to, I didn't like a lot of our counselors. I thought they were very selfish, and it took forever to get in to see them. So I usually had some different women teachers and men teachers. So if it was a boy or a girl, I go, hey, Wes, I think you need to go talk to Mr. Russo. Okay. Which he was one of them. Yeah. And I said, this would be a good guy for you to talk to. Yeah. I give him my
connect them with someone you think they would mesh with personality wise.
And next thing you know, they're graduating with, they got their grades up a full point or whatever it was. Yeah. And so when I told this to Mr. Parker for the whole group, he goes, I'm going to call you tomorrow. And then he just went back into his whole spiel. Yeah. And so I don't know if I'm fired. I don't know if I'm going to stop a job. And so the next day he comes walking in the front doors of the office. I just happen to be walking down the hallway. Now we're talking to superintendent of schools. I am just, me. Yeah. And we have our hierarchy in schools. You have your, your superintendents, your district staff, then you have your principals,
Your
vice
admin,
principals,
yeah.
right on down the line. And so, educators are pretty good about knowing this hierarchy. And so I walk into him and I can tell he's just still mad. And I said, "So, Mr. Parker, you're still mad at me?" He goes, "Yep." And he goes, "I got a meeting right here, and then you and I are going to meet."
Okay.
I had an office in the main office.
Mm-hmm.
And so sure enough, he comes in there and he sits down. He just kind of plops down, and I purposely went and got a Coke because I knew he liked Coke.
Okay.
And I had a couple Cokes waiting, and he sits down and he tells the secretary out front, he goes, "We don't want to be interrupted for a while. So I don't know if I'm going to have a job like in the next 30 minutes." And so he just sits back, takes his big coat off, sits down, and he just goes, "How the hell did you come up with that number anyway? Tell me again." He goes, "I was so tired." So I showed him, and he goes, "Man." He goes, "Sometimes we just had this normal guy talk like we're talking now."
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, "It's so dumb." And how we go so long in education to come up with a simple answer to something. So I used to work for a guy in Hardwoods, and he would say all the time, "You're stepping over dollars to pick up nickels." Now, if you break that down and you say, "Okay, there's $1, Wes, but there's a nickel."
Yep.
And I think we do that a lot in education. We're stepping over that dollar of thinking, all we need to do is ask little Bobby what's up.
Yep.
And yeah, he might be smoking enough weed to float the Titanic back, but he also might just be having a hard time over something else that can be correctable. And if he is smoking that much weed, then you got an opportunity to sit back and say, "Hey, dude, I think maybe we need to get you in touch with one of our counselors who deals with that."
Yeah, for sure.
Because they're probably not really happy.
But I think the hardest thing too was for counselors, and I totally understand all that. I mean, we had a moment, we had small learning teams. So I taught mostly freshmen. And so we'd have 1/4 of the freshman or 1/5 of the freshman class. And the big part of that was every week we would meet and go, "Okay, here are these 3 kids who had A's and B's, but now they're D's and F's." So we would go pull them from class and talk to them. And it was a teacher they had. It wasn't someone random, and it's not an offense to counselors. Counselors have a lot on their plate. They're scheduling and they're doing all this other stuff. Sometimes kids.
Time out. If the first thing I do if I was in charge, I'd let them have input. But at Newbury High School, I brought this up many times, is I don't want the counselor spending a bulk of their time on scheduling.
Sure.
They would have
let them
input.
Meet with kids. Yeah.
I would hire you and I would kill this, and you and Judy, and get.
I'd let you do it.
Get a couple of, but no, not on the counseling part, but when it comes to the.
No, I'd still let you do it.
Get a couple of people that are just a little bit more nerdy than you and me, and have them do that scheduling.
Sure.
And then let the counselors have input.
But that was the biggest thing, is like, we saw value in having a teacher that the kids knew already to go pull them. And it was no knock. We had really good counselors. It was no knock to them. It was like the kids maybe had seen them once all year, so they didn't know who they were. They're going to listen to myself or Mr. Smith or whoever, probably a little bit more. And it really helped. But we had the time to do it.
Yep.
That was the key. We had the time to do it.
You said this earlier in our last episode, though. I think we touched on it briefly about being given enough time as an educator. How does that really look to you?
Ooh, given enough time. I mean, having prep time that's uninterrupted by meetings all the time. But some of the meetings we had to do based on the contract. I get that. Also having fewer meetings in the morning. We would meet as a staff before, and it was the only time that, and no fault to the principal, that they had to get all this info across.
Yeah.
If they send an email out, are we all going to really read it? Probably not. And so a lot of times our contract hours were 7:30 to 3:30, right? So we have the staff meeting from 7:45 to 8:20. Class starts at 8:25. So it wasn't enough time, but again, it wasn't all their fault, because that was the time they were given by the district to have these staff meetings.
I agree. I think a lot of times what I saw, I agree, trying to jam a square peg in a round hole. Yeah. Teachers would get frustrated.
Sure.
Educational assistants would get frustrated because, what I wanted to do when I got to the school board is attack some of these very issues, but we got so much off.
Now you had stuff going on, and the world was unique.
We were attacked nonstop on the political side. but I wanted to get back to that point with like an educator. One of the biggest things I'd hear from educators is they were so frustrated with their time.
Sure.
And I didn't hardly meet anybody, even if they weren't a very good teacher, they wanted to be a better teacher.
Sure.
And I think a lot of times when, it'd be like going out and trying to run a whole basketball practice in 30 minutes. It's just
it's not going to happen. And having to adjust. I mean, flexibility is such a key trait of a good teacher and coach because, all right, I got this 2-hour practice plan.
Yeah.
I mean, we're out at the MAC courts a couple weeks ago. My buddy Doug doing a great job. He's got his practice plan. 10 minutes in, it starts raining. So now you're going to go in the gym. How do you toggle? And now you don't have as much court space. What are you going to do? So being flexible and making it fun, and teachers too. I'm trying to think if I had a colleague who she called it back pocket lessons. So she's like, if something went off the rails with technology, something went off the rails with something, I always had those couple lessons in my back pocket I could pull out and do it without any prep. And I thought that was so smart. So I came up with a couple for myself. I thought that, I can't remember who it was, but
that's good.
But I thought it was great, and I used that the last 4 or 5 years in my career.
No knock on administrators. Mm-hmm. I don't like the way we run administrators.
What do you mean by that? Run administrators?
Well, I think administrators, teachers go take an extra classes at Fox and they become an administrator. They get their license,
Sure.
So they can be an admin. A lot of teachers do it and never get to the admin level.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once they get there, though, they are giving this endless to-do list from the district office staff, and it's just too much. It's, for an example, there's sporting events going on, and at Newburgh, the administrators would have to be at all these things. Boom, boom. You got this, got this, and I'm like, you're busy all day long. You got meetings all day long. You have the meetings you're talking about. Then you have the district office staff meetings, and you got all this kind of. And then I went on and mentioned discipline and all the fires you got to put out.
Yeah, of course.
Then you got to go miss your family again. You got to watch volleyball on Monday night. You got freshman football on Tuesday night. You got this. And I'm like, no. And I brought it up when I first got on the school board. I said, this needs to change. It needs to change quickly because we're burning our administrators out, not from the standpoint they're going to leave because they've reached the highest pay level they can reach. But what they're not reaching is their highest achievement level because we're milking all their energy out of them. Let them, like what I would have done is I would have right off the bat, and I coached sports for years, so I already knew this.
Mm-hmm.
You needed to hire a couple of people and probably a kind of contract basis. Teachers that need a little more money, pay them well though, and let them be your gym supervisor, your field supervisors. They can make those same decisions, and then get your administrators home so they can have dinner with their families, maybe 2 nights a week, not 4 or 5. And then one of the other things, Wes, I think too, is like with your administrators and the district office just floods them with all these things, these hoops they have to jump through.
Of course.
And so then they have to turn and do that to the staff. And like you said, all these incessant meetings are going, like site council, like, no.
Yeah, but I think with that, the 2 things that I would change for admin. Number 1, qualification to get in. I think you have to have a minimum amount of years in the classroom before jumping in. Boom.
Absolutely.
See? Different sides, we can agree. I think that...
make the classroom great.
Well, I think the classroom, as Bill Clinton would say, already was great. I think that...
not bad on Bill.
Yeah.
You do a good Bill.
Yeah, thank you. Just the voice.
They've been mean to me again.
Okay, all right. I think the best admin I ever had were the ones that spent 10, 15, 20 years in the classroom before they went in.
Absolutely.
And I had some admin that were younger than that. I mean, most admin I had that I thought were really good were 50 plus, but I had a few admin in their 40s that were phenomenal, but they spent 10-ish years, 15 years in the classroom. And so I think that is a requirement. But then also the biggest thing that admin always said to me were, I really wish I could come watch my teachers teach more. But like you said, they had the list of things to do that kept them out. Because I remember when I was teaching my history of rock and roll class, which was super fun, our assistant principal, who became our principal right when I left, she was the one who got me the approval from the district to do the class. Because it has to go through the chain of command, right? So she would come in and do one of my observations for the year, because we got to be observed a couple of times. When I was teaching that class specifically, she would come in. This is our principal. So here's the principal coming in. And one of the days that I picked was the day we covered Soul Train. So I'm talking about funk. So we would do a dance off, talk about experiential learning. We would do a dance off, and you'd have, it wasn't graded. It was fun. Most kids would get up there and they're like, all right, we're going to not have to, like, do an assignment or do something. Let's dance. But I always had a couple kids who were like, oh God, I don't want to go dance in front of my peers. She and I would kick it off. I'm a terrible dancer. And I'm not being humble. I am horrible. Like, if we're looking at the rating system for tennis, I'm a negative 3.6. I'm awful. And she was like a 6.0. She is an amazing dancer, and I think had a dancing background too. And she would come in, and the kids are like, wow, if our principal's out here dancing, I think I'm going to give this a try. And so I think she always liked that was one of the few times she could visit a classroom and it wasn't your traditional observation.
Love it.
It was, and it was super fun. But yeah, I think there's a lot of good administrators out there that just don't get to have that face-to-face that they want and they miss from being in the classroom.
Oh, I think that's a great story. I guess on the opposite side of that story is when I left after 20 years, I got called in by the principal. Oh yeah. And she's still there, and she and I got along okay. And she said, I'd like you to come talk to the administrators and just tell them what you think. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay. And so
I'm on my way out. I'm going to tell it like it is.
I'm going to tell it like it is. And so one of the first things I said, well, I go, if you're not 11 years old, I don't care about your feelings. I say this all the time on Stand Tall. Toughen up. Life's rough. Get a helmet. But I just said, I guess my biggest piece of advice to you guys is you're not the smartest people in the room. Don't assume you're always the smartest person because you're an administrator. You've got teachers and educators, educational assistants out there, people that work in the kitchen, could even be a custodian. You have no idea who these people are because I've talked to them and you never talked to them about it. They might have some knowledge that you just don't have. And there's talk to them more, let them have some leeway to run stuff. And so that one was said. And I said, probably the next one I got, guys, is for years and years when we have lunchtime, we have a big commons area, 2 commons areas. Yep. And I go, you guys all stand around the garbage can, hold it down so make sure it doesn't get away. And there's like 5 or 6 of you. And I'm like, I'm not bragging here, but I figured since you guys didn't need any help holding the garbage can down, that I'm going to go out and I'd walk up to tables and purposely try to get to all the tables of all the kids. Didn't matter if they're brown, black, or white. Didn't matter if it was freshmen or seniors. Didn't matter anything about that stuff. And you had some tough tables, especially when I'm walking up. They're like, oh boy, they're kind of vapor locking. What did I do? Like, slipping the, like something, whatever.
Putting something away that they didn't. No, I hear you.
But I'd come up, and then there'd be certain times where I'd grab something out of the cafeteria if it was good, and like our Val, our former cook, had these amazing sausages. Most of the food in the public schools, not that good. But these sausages in the morning time, I'd go get like 25 of them from him. Mm-hmm. I go around the table and I find a table with a bunch of boys are sitting around there and these girls like to eat. And I go, hey man, I got these for you. And they'd be like, food to a teenager is like gold. And
it's like we came to play Newburgh. Kids want to go to Burgerville more than play the damn match. Jeez.
But I mean, I told him, I said, get away from the garbage can and go out and meet kids. Sit down and talk to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And be a real person to them, because all you are now is a person who just stands there and holds down a garbage can.
But I think the most important thing a leader can do, and the best admin that I ever worked for, they're the ones that solicited input from people that worked for them.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to bring up I'm going to do my impression here. Stand Tall with Dave Brown. Yeah. I know you talk about people, politics, education, sports, and Jesus. Yep. Hope I got the order right.
No, but
okay, that's all right. You always change it, but whatever.
All right.
But anyways, the cadence was pretty good. This is an overlap between education and sports and people. No Jesus, no politics. I remembered all 5. Yeah. I saw a video actually yesterday about Larry Bird.
Oh.
And I know you dislike Larry Bird a lot.
Basketball player all the time.
This was a video with a fellow Hall of Famer talking about Larry Bird. who happened to play with him on the Dream Team,
Okay.
and also played for him, Chris Mullen, when he was on the Pacers. And they were talking about Larry Bird as a coach. Someone was interviewing him on a podcast, and he goes, the best thing about Bird, he empowered his assistants. So like Rick Carlisle, who will be a Hall of Fame coach too, was an assistant, and he ran the offense. But Bird was the one who drew up the plays and then let Carlisle go do the work. So he listened to his staff, and then he empowered them to go make the choice. Just like the admin that I worked for, they'd ask us, what do you think about this, this, and this? And then if they liked the idea, they'd say, can you go to the district and pitch it?
Sure.
So anyways, Larry Bird got it in.
Hey.
But anyways, I thought that was a great thing where the person had praised, Mullen had praised for Bird. He said, hey, the guy was a hell of a coach, but he empowered his assistants. And that was the most impressive thing about what made him a leader. He only coached for 3 years.
Yeah, I know.
But
then he went in the front office and for a long time.
Yeah.
I think, I've said this before on Stand Tall, what fits right into what you just said. My former father-in-law ran big lumber mills, 5'5", tiny little guy. We didn't get along really good because I wasn't a doctor. But he...
You're a doctor of life now, though.
Yeah. Can I get a certificate on that? He fired somebody right in front of me and about 50, 60 people in this lumber mill up in Washington. And it was rough. And he didn't do it nicely.
Okay.
And so a little later, he takes me to lunch, and he's buying me lunch, and we don't talk for 10 minutes. We didn't talk. All of a sudden, he looks at me and goes, David, you probably thought it was pretty rough on that guy, didn't you? I went, it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
He goes, he'd been a cancer for 2 years, and I had to let the staff know that we weren't putting up with that stuff anymore. He goes, don't like to do that out, dressing me down like that in front of everybody, but it had to be done.
Yep.
And I went, okay. The most important words I've ever heard in my entire life for coaching and business was this. He looked at me and said, David, he goes, if somebody uses fear, control, or manipulation in their management style, they're masking a deficiency in their management style. Now, this is a guy out a day at college, but made tons of money doing what he did.
Yeah.
He'd worked himself up from the very lowest end of the lumber industry to, running big time mills. And I looked at him, he goes, let me tell you that one more time. If somebody uses fear, control, or manipulation in their management style, administrator in a school, they're masking a deficiency.
Sure.
So there's two things going on here,
For sure.
And we all hate to have fear, control, and manipulation in anything we do. And we've seen a lot of that in the last 5 years, and people they're so tired of it. And I think then when you move into like education or any work, a mill or a steel mill, nobody wants to work under somebody like that. But then also that person hasn't been vetted enough to realize that they have a serious flaw in their management style. Going back, I love your statement on, because we've had this happen in Newburgh where people they're whipping out these, George Fox degrees and getting their admin license, and there's no way in heck. I agree, 10 years minimum.
Yeah.
Be in the classroom.
Yes.
Learn what it's like to go through the trenches. And I think any school district should have that in place. Yeah. So my point is, none of us want to work for people like that, but we love to work for people who empower you.
For sure. And I was just kind of thinking about, it was your ex-father-in-law, is that what I said?
Yeah.
So I would...
Ron.
Hi, Ron. So...
He can't hear anymore, so go ahead.
I understand. Sorry.
I didn't see real good.
Yeah,
either.
I understand. But still, shout out to Ron for that life lesson.
Yeah.
That was always my thing when I was coaching tennis. I was much more relaxed in a classroom. On a tennis court, I was a little more intense. And so the kids, it was kind of fun for them to see one side of me and see the other side. But I never did like what you said. The fear, manipulation, all that stuff. You can be firm and fair. And I think being a good teacher and coach, you have to do that.
Yeah.
You have to set expectations, but you got to be fair and you got to have mutual respect. But I was never afraid. And some of the players for me that I feel like, and you can probably think of a few that you met over the years, that I was the hardest on were typically my best players.
Yeah.
Like some coaches are like, they kind of coddle and they don't want to touch the prime player. They don't want to make them mad. And I'm like, if the team sees that you're hard on the best player on your team, they're going to work hard.
Yeah.
You know, and
And
sometimes
younger kids.
sometimes the most talented kid can be the hardest one to deal with. I mean,
Well,
we both have.
Wes saying that, I think it goes back to the classroom too. I honestly believe this, even at my age, is that the kids are not different in the respect that when you're in middle school, high school, and I don't mean to say this meanly, you're dumber than a stick when it comes to just figuring life out.
Street smarts.
Huh?
Street smarts, you're saying. Well,
Yeah.
they don't have life experience.
IQ, they're just so smart, and I think that as they go through, like I tell every 20-year-old that's in college and they're talking about getting married or having kids or what they're going to do for a career, I go, oh, I said, hold on here, like time out.
Yeah.
I said, you're 20. I said, the difference between 20 and 25 isn't 5 years. It's like 15. You're going to
Of
grow
course.
so much.
Of course.
And the difference between like a 7th grader and like a junior in high school is massive.
Sure.
And the difference between a junior in high school and
Mhm.
somebody who's, you know, just barely graduating, the whole conversation with these kids,
Yeah,
all
it's
I know is every kid that I've been around for all these years, what they'll say post high school, I wish it was tougher. I wish they would have been firmer on me. I wish they would have pushed me more.
Okay.
I wish I'd had more coaches, teachers like you who would push yet say, Wes, how you doing? And you're going, I'm not doing really good, honestly. At home's not very good. You know, mom, dad getting divorced again, grandpa's sick, the dog died, my girlfriend just broke up, whatever's
Sure.
going on.
There's a lot going on.
Nobody ever asked me that question before.
Yeah.
How am I doing? Like, how am I doing? Nobody's
Yeah.
ever asked me that. And I'm thinking, even as adults, as we go through this life, we're like, how you doing?
Yeah.
And like you and I can talk pretty much about anything. I know we haven't really ever hit that point in our friendship where we've had something go bad.
No,
Bad.
I don't think it ever would, though.
No, but I mean bad like in life, like a death in a family, a bad car wreck like Judy had.
Yeah.
But if that did happen, I know that the phone call could happen just like that.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And we would switch gears from, dicking around with tennis talk and pickleball. Sure. We'd be right into what do you need? You know, right there.
Yeah, of course.
Even if you were, I would even get on a plane and fly to Vietnam for you.
Oh. I don't know if I do the same for you, but I still love you. No, but I think it kind of comes back to of course I would. The thing that I look at, like the philosophy of why do we, you got me thinking education now. It's kind of fun to think back after being 4 years out and kind of ponder and look at, think about all the hours of meetings I was in and things I would do the same, things I would do differently. But if I ask you a question, what was your whole reason for you being a coach? We're bringing in sports and education. See what I did there?
I think we've said this before. I think sports is. I'd like it to be a requirement for kids to participate in an extracurricular activity. And even if they're a band kid, I like to see them at least once in their high school career play a sport just to be part of it. I think every jock ought to have to be in a play too.
Okay.
Behind the scenes or behind the curtain or in front. I'd like to see every kid required to take an art class, for example. I think it's huge. Give them as many opportunities as you can. I think for me, Wes, I love the question because I had some of those coaches that Mr. Johnson in 4th, 5th, 6th grade at Central Grade School, Mr. Altnader in middle school. As oddly as I put it, Mr. Stewart in high school, he was not a good tennis coach.
Okay.
But I liked him as a person. He was obnoxious. He was blunt. Didn't know jack about tennis. But I really identified with him as far as he had some toughness to him about life.
Sure.
And then I get to college and I got a basketball coach named Mr. Owens. And I remember he just a little tiny dude, old school. And he'd always walk up to me and he goes, "Hey, Red." And I hated to be called Red. And I'm like 15. I'm 18, look 15. And he goes, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I'm here to play basketball." And he goes, "This is for college kids, not high school kids. Get out of my gym." So this goes on for like 3 solid days.
Yeah.
And Tim Bressy became a fire chief in Portland, 6'5", big Benson high school guy.
Okay.
And he comes up to me one day and he was the best player on the team. And he just goes, "Dave, you're going to be fine." He goes, "You're going to make the team." And I go, "Why do you think that? There's like 36 guys here. They're pretty good athletes." And he goes, "Because I already told coach I want you on the team." And I went, he goes, "You're the only guy that gets me the ball in the post where I want it. And plus, if they come off you, you'll just hit the outside shot just before the 3-point line."
Sure.
And he said, sorry, he told coach, I want you. And I'm like, all right. And so I'm feeling a little bit better. 10 minutes later, hey, Red, what are you doing in my gym? Get out of my gym. And so it was a funny story, but got to know him really well over a couple of year period of time. And but that first year in tryouts, West, we're battling away. Got 36 guys trying out, and you know, it was racially divided, and there was a lot of tension going on. Well, I had 2 kids from inner city Portland. They happened to be black, and I get caught in a play. Ball comes in like a football catch. I'm catching it high. Coaches have gone out to make cuts.
Okay.
I get hit here. I get spun around the ground. Boom! I hit, and I've got the wind knocked out of me. I get bam, bam, bam. I get punched both sides 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, give me the ball. All these words are being said, and I know a lot, but I do know I'm not giving up the ball.
Yeah.
And I grew up with older kids, so I'm really competitive. You know, and
just a little bit.
What's that?
Just a little.
Just a little. A guy that became in my wedding. He's in a picture in the other room. He comes up and grabs the first guy by the hair and goes, bam!
Whoa!
Goes into his face. Blood goes everywhere.
Whoa.
Grabs the other guy. Boom! Smokes him.
Whoa.
Blood's everywhere, all over the place. It's a free for all in the middle. I'm at the bottom, holding the basketball, like, what's going on? Coaches walk in, Mr. Owens.
Yeah.
I always remember he had little white Nikes with black stripes, the old Nikes back in the 70s. And he looks around, and you know, coaches are getting people pulled apart.
Pull people away from
and
each
he
other.
goes, I don't know why he picked me. It's the first time he didn't call me Red. He goes, Brown, what happened? And I looked around, and I just know every guy is in there to make the team.
Yeah.
And I'd been slapped around by all the kids in my neighborhood forever. So I knew that part of the whole gig. And I hadn't got a chance to play a lot of the inner city kids in Portland before until that 3 days. And it was fun, man, good basketball. Yeah. And I just said, bad collision, coach, just a bad collision. And he looks around, he just goes, and all the guys are kind of looking at me because they, you know.
Well, yeah, they thought you might, you know,
throw people under the bus.
Say, yeah, what was happening.
And he goes, oh, Brown, what happened? I said, just a bad collision, coach. Just a really bad collision.
I'm just holding on to the ball, coach.
I did. I still had the ball like this, and there's blood all over me.
Oh, my God.
And so a couple weeks later, they made the teams. One of those guys got cut, and one of those guys didn't.
Oh.
Guy's name was Larry that made the team. And he sits down next to me on the bus. We're going to a game, and he goes, hey, man, I got to ask you a question. I said, yeah, what's up? And he goes, why didn't you tell Coach what really happened? And I said, why? I said, we're all trying to make the team.
Yeah.
It was getting really sporty day 2, really sporty day 3. Yeah. We're all trying to make the team. I said, I probably would have done the same thing. And I said, we're all doing everything we could to make the team. And he looks at me and goes, man, he goes, that was impressive. He goes, I thoroughly expected to get cut right there. Huh? And I said, well, I have another reason, though, kind of a selfish reason. He goes, what's that? And I go, you're one of the best 8 players in the gym. I said, I figure if I can see it at 18, they could see it too. And here you are, you're on the team. I said, you're not as good as me. I said, 'cause you're a better athlete than me, though I can outshoot you. No. But I said, I started, but he came off the bench. He was 8th guy. And we sat together, ate together, talked all the time together, and cool guy, and he's a solid basketball player, fun to play with, one of those guys you like playing ball with. And that whole story went down. So about a month and a half later, we're fishing up, smelt fishing with Mr. Owens. Okay. Me and the guy that threw the punch. Yeah. Mr. Owens looks at me and he goes, Brown,
what happened?
What happened? I said, Coach, I don't want to tell you. He goes, Brown, I want to know what happened. I said, no repercussions, no go backs. I said, it's a clean slate. I said, nothing can happen. And he shook on it with me, I promised. So I told him. And he goes, well, why didn't you say something? I said, why? Yeah. And I think back to education like right now, Wes, I think you take every kid today at Mac, every kid at Newburgh, doesn't matter what school we're talking about, they all just want a good person in front of them to challenge them to be the best they can be at whatever they're doing. And what they also want is when I've heard this so many times, when I have kids come back to me, and I know you've had it too, they come up to you at 40, 35, 30, 25, 26, and they go, man, I just really liked having you in my circle. And sometimes I wasn't even their direct coach. I was just in the hallways with them, and I would just say hi to them every day. They said you were the person that would stand at the south doors and say hi to me every single morning.
The stuff you don't realize.
That was it. That's all I did.
Yeah.
I didn't coach them.
So for you, it's the being that person, or just being that positive influence in front of them that gives them that experience, but also shows that you care. I mean, that was a big reason you got into coaching. Like for me, it was improving and making kids better people.
Yeah.
Like I remember, I'm going to use our old friend Jim Solberg from Tualatin. That was a long time in Tiger, really good tennis coach. We were talking about how talented that Pacific Conference, for not having a lot of hardly any club tennis kids.
Yeah.
The experience level of the coaches for a long time was really good.
Yeah, it was.
And really helped mold those kids into better tennis players. But Solberg, talked to me once about his parent meeting, and he goes, I'm going to do the bad impression, but he goes, what's the purpose of, what do you tell your parents your goal is every year? And I said, to make better people. I said, I could tell you right now if you asked me, and I'm not going to share it, and I'm sure you would know the answer, what's your overall coaching record? Like, I know what it is in my career. But to me, that's not it's the district titles. It's all like, whatever. Coach of the year, I'll throw all that stuff out. It's the kids that come back and say, hey, coach, and the kids that give me, I didn't do it as long as you did, but the kids that give me the life updates the most frequent are the ones I butted heads with the most. I found that all the time because one of those kids didn't have a dad in the picture.
Yeah.
The other one was being pressured to play tennis. The other one, and that's why we do it. That's why we do it. And it's not a massively high paying job.
No.
But it's not what's important. You're locked into that to that fun environment.
Yeah, and there's tough days in coaching. That's why this really happened. Kid named Kelly Gordon went to school with Josh, graduated 2004. And you don't know. That's why you have to go do stuff. That's why I tell people, go play pickleball, go figure it all out, go play something other than just what you're doing now. I've told tennis people, I said, you're starting to slow down in tennis court, go play pickleball.
Both.
Go do something. But coaching brought me Kelly Gordon, and Kelly shows up at tryouts, and he's wearing like long khaki pants with like not real tennis shoes, kind of like somewhere between a bowling shoe and and he's got a long sleeve, like light blue kind of work shirt on, all long sleeve, button up to here. And he's like 5'9", not athletic at all. Nice kid, quiet. But he knew all the seniors, and that particular senior class was one of the most talented senior classes. I had the athlete of the year in football, basketball. I had football players on my team. We were tough. Well, Kelly's there. Well, I got about 48 kids, and I'm cutting down to 24, which I did my first
couple years,
3-4 years. I cut down to 24. So I got all these coaches with me. Got one paid, got volunteers. We're all making our cut list. First guy on the list is Kelly Gordon, on everybody's list. So I come home from school on Monday, and my son Josh is in the kitchen. And my son Josh, very athletic, good looking, smart, 4-point student, gets along with all the other kids well, Josh and I have a bowl of cereal about 8 o'clock at night for dinner, and he goes, hey, Dad, what are you going to do with Kelly Gordon? I said, what do you mean what I'm going to do? I'm cutting Kelly Gordon. He's terrible. And I said, Josh, he's the first guy cut. And he goes, okay. I said, why do you care? And he goes, oh, I don't really care. I just go to school with him, and, it's really amazing. Like, you bring up like college basketball. He knows the 12th guy on the UCLA Bruins basketball team.
I like this kid already.
And he's like,
it's a UCLA guy.
He knows all the baseball players from Cal Berkeley. And I'm like, really? I go, that's pretty impressive. I said, Josh, he sucks, and we're going to cut him. Yeah, okay, Dad. So we go to tennis practice on Tuesday, tryouts on Tuesday. We come home 8 o'clock at night. We're eating cereal again for dinner. Josh goes, hey, Dad, what are you going to do with Kelly Gordon? And I'm a little more testy at this point because I hate cuts. It's the worst thing.
Oh, it's horrible.
And I had to do basketball too. And you're firing a kid. You're just firing.
Yeah.
You're telling them you're fired.
I think we did it 2 years. It was because we had like 65 kids try out. Like I just couldn't. It's hard. It's hard. Really hard because all those kids are great.
Well, Kelly is there today too, so I get a little more testy with Josh. We go back and forth. He just tells me, "Oh, that's all right, Dad. I understand. You got to cut him." So we go to day 3. It's 4-5. We're announcing the team.
Yep.
No, this was Thursday. Wednesday, same thing. Josh and I got early.
Same conversation.
Thursday, 4-5. we're gonna make cuts. So I got my whole sheet. Kelly's first guy cut. Look at the whole sheet. I got like 47 or 8 guys out for tennis. And we got varsity at 12, JV at 12. That's what you have. 4 singles, 4 doubles. And 24 is just the right number courts wise. Anything more than that makes it difficult.
It's tough.
And all my coaches are ready to make the cuts. But I'm head coach, so I have to be the one to stand up there and give the good news, bad news. Kids are super nervous. And I looked at my list for like 3 minutes and don't say a word. We're at Jacob Park our last year, second to last year at Jacob Park. And I go, well, I'm going to do something I've never done before. And I'm just letting everybody know right now that there's a lot of people in these courts that need to play tennis a lot more than I need to cut them. I said, so I took a piece of paper, crunched it up, and I go, we're not cutting. We're keeping everybody. And I said, if you don't like it, I don't care.
Well,
I said, I'll see you tomorrow. Well, the people that were mad at me were the coaches because they're just like,
yeah, now they got to have all the kids on the court.
and they put all this work into cuts, right?
Yeah, of course.
And so the kids walk off. I could tell there was a little lighter mood. 3 weeks later, our AD, Tim Burketime, scheduled Sherwood. At that time, Sherwood was terrible. I mean, they're bad. They play on the 3 courts. And so we go up there, and I don't take our full varsity because I've seen them play. They're terrible. But I did take Josh, and I took a few good players, and I had our JVs. They only have 3 courts, and they're looking right in the sun, or they're not looking in the sun, and they're sloped this way. So we're sitting there playing this match. Kelly Gordon's playing with Josh. Well, they're playing these kids from Sherwood, and so I tell my son Josh, who's 1,472 million times more athletic
Better
than
than
Kelly
the kid.
Gordon.
Okay.
And it's funny, Josh goes, Dad. I said, okay, Josh, your goal is the ball can't hit the ground. If it hits the ground, you lose the point. Simple as that. And so Kelly's into this match. They're playing. Kelly's out there and still wearing the long blue shirt. Put the jersey over his shirt.
Love it.
I went and got a T-shirt. He has it over.
Yeah.
And he's still wearing the long pants. And so they win the match.
Yeah.
Him and Josh are high-fiving, and everything. But while they're playing, I'm outside the 3 courts. And in tennis, this is one thing I don't like, but this particular day, his mom and these 2 ladies, this mom goes, "You're Coach Brown." I go, "Yeah." And she goes, "I'm Kelly Gordon's mom."
Oh.
And I go, "Well, it's nice to meet you, Mrs. Gordon. Never would have met her if I'd have cut Kelly Gordon, right?" So there's 1 plus. I said, "So how are you doing?" She starts to cry. And she goes, the day before Kelly said he's going to play tennis, he's got straight Fs. He's brilliant, but he doesn't care about his homework. His room's a train wreck. He hasn't applied for his driver's license. He hasn't applied to any colleges. He's not helping around the house. He is, there's like 3 or 4 other things. He doesn't this or that. He didn't have a driver's license. He's 18 years old, he's a senior. A couple other things happened. And she goes, "We're so frustrated with him. We're just ready to pull her out because he's not going to be ready for the real world."
Yeah.
The day after he makes your tennis team, he's crying. The other 2 moms start crying. He comes home, and by the time he went to bed, his room is perfectly clean. Perfectly clean. She's crying harder now. I'm tearing up. She goes, within a week, he had all his grades up to straight Bs. Within 2 weeks, he was up to straight As.
Wow.
He just hadn't turned in any work. That's the number 1 problem, by the way, not turning in work. And he applied for his driver's license. Oh, and he asked the girl to go to the prom.
Oh, there you go.
That's my best coaching thing.
That's why you coach.
And
making the difference in people's lives.
To this day, I've never forgotten that lesson that don't throw away the Kelly Gordons to get to the Wes Gabrielsons or the Dave Browns, because we may be more athletic at the time, but Kelly's gone on to a successful life, got married, had a couple kids. And
that's awesome.
I haven't seen him for years to come, but he was a great young guy. We go to Medford. We take Kelly Gordon to this big tournament. No, he's not going to play at Medford. So I said, "Kelly, I'm promoting you to assistant coach. Clipboard, he stat your match out to a T.
Double faults, first serve.
In the first set, he's going, Wes, is your serve percentage, how many unforced errors you have, and you're going."
Well, thank you.
And he did this on his own. So there's a long answer to your question.
Yes, but that's why we're in it.
So
it's the experience. So back to my thing, experience or knowledge base, experience for that kid.
Yeah.
That's why we do it.
Yeah. And then as a person who just reads people, that's why I think a person does need 10 years in the classroom before they become an administrator. You got to learn how to read those teachers. You have to do the same thing to a teacher. You have to build them up, and then hopefully they can, get their room clean and get their grades better to be a better educator, which will make them be a better administrator. So Well, let's wrap this one. You got time for one more?
I do have time for one more.
I mean, we've been trying to do this for years, and education wise, like I said, this is one of the people. We were pretty tame on education a little bit. I've seen some of the insides out coming from school board,
Sure.
and being retired from it. I really do think Mac, when I listened to you talk, I think Mac was more squared away than we were over here.
Gotcha.
So,
well, I mean, maybe that's a good hiring process. I don't know. I mean, I'm not to when stuff was going down with the school board, and you were talking about a bunch of those controversial, regardless of where you sit on it, choices of videos made and certain things like this, saying opinions and certain things. Social studies is ripe for the field for me or another teacher to go, yeah, this is what I believe and why, or this is what I believe. And we all kind of looked at each other and went, well, we wouldn't do that, because that's not the point of us being here.
Yeah.
Regardless of where we're at. And, I don't know. Maybe the next hour we'll get into it a little more intensely.
I'm sure we will.
I think we will.
It's Stand Tall with Dave Brown. Wes, thanks for being here on this one. We're going to pause this one. We're going to go into a third one, and producer Rob will edit all this and put it together. So if Wes says something, no.
Highly intelligent.
Highly intelligent. We won't edit that and stuff. But standtallwithdavebrown.com. Please come on there. Like Rob always says, Apple CarPlay and YouTube, all that kind of stuff. Hit clicks for likes. That's how people on social media get going. I have also noticed, also TikTok, Instagram, X. I get on Instagram and I see some stuff from some guy named Wes Gabrielson on there.
Yeah, there is some stuff.
Very professionally well done, by the way.
I hire a lot of people to do it.
I'm sure you do.
Right here.
It's fun.
I don't know. We have fun.
My promo on TikTok and X and Instagram, though, is I come across stuff like that. There's stuff that you just blow past or you want to get past really quick, but there is that on there, and you learn about stuff. It's kind of like if you don't have a lot of time, you can scroll for a couple minutes while you're waiting for something. Get your Subway sandwich, and then boom, you're done. You can just move on and go, and you can go back to it anytime you want to. So podcasts like this take longer, but I've been amazed at the people who listen to podcasts, Wes.
Yep.
More and more, it's becoming, the legacy media has hurt themselves, and more people are going to alternate outlets.
Sure. It's kind of crazy going back to pickleball. I think there are probably 25 to 30 constant weekly podcasts just on pickleball.
Good.
Yeah. And a lot of them that have a framework similar to yours, where you talk about, and we're not going to go through your whole list of topics, but the people part, I like those. I'll listen to those a little bit. If it's talking about who beat who and the drama and that, I don't like it as much. But there's a lot of cool people getting into podcasting, sharing stories.
Oh yeah,
about people.
We got some people stories coming up this summer. You'll find fascinating, because and it can be anything.
Yeah. You got anything on Ronald Reagan coming up? You should. I know he's your guy.
I do like Ronnie.
Yeah, great communicator.
Did you watch the movie?
No, not yet. I will.
Good movie. I
bet it is. Was that Dennis Quaid?
Dennis Quaid did a good job. That's a tough one to go through.
I'll watch it.
I'll give you a shout out to your boy Bill Clinton.
He's not my boy.
When's the last time we had a balanced budget in the United States?
I was gonna say maybe we get into politics, episode 3. Talk about balanced budget. It can be done by anyone.
Bill might have been wild over here, but we had a balanced budget back in 19.
It's bipartisanship we can believe in.
It actually happened in our lifetime.
Yeah. Let's hope it happens soon.
Yeah. Okay. Stand Tall with Dave Brown. We're going to end this one. We'll come back for another one. Good job.
You too. Let me just check with Lou. No, I thought that was good. We didn't get to all your education stuff, but
go out there. I never know if the microphone's picking something up.
You what?
I think we're at end, but never know if he can edit some of this out too. Do you have to get anything to drink or anything? Are you good?
I use the restroom. You can drink all that water. It's ended or didn't?
Yeah, it's at end.
If we're still talking, Rob will edit it out.
Oh, I'm just gonna text. I'm not.
Lucy out there?
No, she's in the back, right in the back there. Her little,
Oh, you see her chair?
this way. In that room.
Oh, there's my woosy bears. There's my woosy bears. It's on my chair now.
Oh, my babies. My babies.
What are you doing this week, babe? Really? You talking to me? Oh, yeah. Oh. What are you doing there? Oh, sweet peas, you. Oh, it's a good girl, you are.
You good to go? You need water, eh?
No, I got water in there. I just all the water I drank when I was playing pickle. I just gotta get a Kleenex. The allergies.
Oh, there's one. You got time for one more? What, Lucy?
Yeah, oh, that's fine.
You have your permission?
What was that, Wes? You go say hi to Wes.
This is kind of what you were hoping for.
Yeah, that's great.
Well, like I said, I've done a bunch of these, so it's
We need to
pretty.
talk about pickleball.
Oh, that's fine.
Well, Larry Bird.
Oh no, you showed me.
So I got a little bit up there. I got posters down, but
Yeah, you showed me. Well, when we were here, when Lou was here, we were looking at.
I want to paint this whole.
I know you love Elvis.
Oh, I like Elvis. No thanks. I would choke to death.
Try one.
I'll try one, but I'll choke to death.
Okay.
Okay, I'll take
They're
it.
not bad at all. Just
For me,
pumpkin
it's
seed
like-
and salt.
This whole food thing.
This is a ton of protein, good fats. You got enough fiber, and look at you get a lot of your magnesium. You get iron.
What's their serving power thing with that?
It's 100. It's not. I mean, it's a fourth of a cup. It's 180. So you're probably at about 60 there. I put these on salads. You don't want your dog to eat it. Right here. I mean, I don't think it's like horrible if your dog eats it, but they're not supposed to eat peanut butter, so.
Very good. So that's your chair in there. Do you ever shoot guns?
I did it once at Boy Scout camp. Didn't like it. I'm not anti. I'm just. I mean, I think there's some weapons that shouldn't be legal, but for users, like for the non-military, and I mean, like, do we really need like assault rifles? My opinion. Do we need them? I mean, maybe we shouldn't talk about that. Like, what's the point? Like, if you're, in my mind, if you're gonna go cook, if you're gonna like hunt, people that use assault rifles to hunt, I'm like, is there any meat left?
Well, if it's a 223 round, yes.
No,
If
I
it's
still.
a round that, like, they go into a certain kind of round that explode.
Yeah, I just don't think it's necessary. But I like your hat there. Ready for this?
Mhm.
We went to this breakfast place in Wilsonville that opened up like a year ago. Uh-huh. I know you like them. You like them. Fit as a fiddle.
I'm getting there.
So, of course, I'm right. I'm Dave. So Lou got this coffee cup and it worked perfectly. And I'm like, if there's anyone who this applies to more than anyone I know,
It's Lou.
oh fuck. Let me take a picture of that if you don't mind. You gotta put your bill down. Oh, why is it all off kilter? So like just your hat, as much as we love you.
I got Lucy sat there, look in the mirror. Are you here? Go back in there. Go back to your chair.
Hey, two things.
Luce, wanna go back in here?
It says it's still going.
Here a bit. Luce.
Your thing's still going,
Okay.
and it says low battery.
Well, I'm gonna get all the way then. Oh, I'll plug that in. Got my charger.
Hey. Excuse me.
Here, Rob, put that.
This will look way different here in about. There it is.
I don't have to
Whoa.
do all this stuff.
What did that?
What
The light just changed.
Did one of them go out?
No, it like got brighter.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what you tweaked. I feel like it just kind of, maybe you plugged in and out. That's what it was. It went like.
We got new lights, new table, big new camera coming. It's gonna be fun, and everything's got to be Dave Brown proof. We can step it up a little bit more on the
Oh, whatever you want.
whatever you want to talk about.
So it's still going.